Everybody, today is Tuesday, March 5th. It's 3:06 p.m. I'd like to call the Rules Administration and Procedures Committee to order. Madam Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Chairperson Ron Mormon,
Here.
Vice Chair Emmanuel Yamas.
Here.
Alderman Edward Bug,
Here.
Alderman Carl Franco,
Here.
Alderwoman Patty Smith. Here. 5 present.
Thank you. First item on the agenda, approval of the minutes, 24-0129, approval of the minutes from the Rules Administration Procedures Committee meeting held on February 20th, 2024.
Second.
Here, a motion by Alderman Smith, a second by Alderman Franco. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Madam Clerk, anybody for public comment?
No, we do not.
Thank you. First item on the agenda, 24-0125, an ordinance establishing the Aging Community Advisory Board under Chapter 2, Article 6 of the Code of Ordinances.
Good afternoon, Alex Voigt from the Mayor's Office, and I have with me Katrina Boatwright, the city's manager of Senior and Disability Services. What we have before you today is a proposal to create a new board or commission, this one specifically Aging in Community. And this is based off of Katrina's work for the past few years since she's been here. And additionally, as referenced in the memo, Katrina has been working with the Metropolitan Mayor's Caucus, Aging in a Changing Region program, and one of the recommendations they offered was to create a board specifically for our aging and community population. That's what this is aiming to do. And I do have Katrina here if there are any questions, and there will also be a presentation on that report at an upcoming committee of the whole meeting. So we're hoping to time the creation of this board with her report out on her efforts.
So moved.
Any questions, comments from the committee?
Yeah.
Alderman Bug?
I see in reference, there's a lot of reference that it's going to basically be for people, programming for people 62 and over.
Correct.
Is there an age requirement on the people on the board or no?
So, is there an age requirement? No. It will be a 9-member board, so as we usually do, we'll be looking for people with a direct tie to that community, whether you are a member of the community, you work with, support, so on and so forth. So we will want you to be actively engaged with the community that the board is aimed at addressing.
Okay, thank you.
I do have one quick question. Have we started, we have people in mind that we're going to ask to be on the board. I have approached you about being on this board yet?
I do not.
I will say, are there several people that's been waiting for me to do something of sorts? Absolutely. Do they feel like there is a need to have a city-led group that has insight and input around these spaces? Absolutely. Have I decided that, yes, I want them to consider that space? Maybe, maybe not. So I think we're open. I think there are people eager, and we'll let them apply, and then we'll see.
And if it's not too late, would you mind stating your name for the record too? So
Absolutely. Katrina Boatwright, Manager of Senior and Disability Services.
thank you so much. So,
You're welcome.
any other questions, comments?
So moved.
Have a motion by Alderman Smith, second by Alderman Yamas. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Thank
Motion
you.
carries 5-0. Next item on the agenda, 24-0139, an ordinance amending Chapter 2, Article 2, Division 2-6-5, Section 2-414, entitled Policies and Procedures.
Yes, I have another boards and commissions related item. This is to do with bolstering the overall general policies and procedures for boards and commissions. Some of you will recall when we did the significant ordinance amendments back in 2021 related to boards and commissions, we did add some specific provisions regarding member participation, attendance, all of those sorts of things, and that was aimed at replacing the need for individual bylaws. It became too cumbersome to manage all of the different rules and regulations for the various boards. So it's been working quite well in our about 3 years in operation, but we have discovered some areas where we do need additional, just some other tie-ins to existing code provisions. So that's what this proposes. It does reference the code of conduct, which is something we implemented that's been very helpful. And every member that's appointed to a board is required to sign that, and we do track those in the mayor's office. So this would be proposing to amend that and just add some additional provisions. And I can take any questions.
Any questions, comments from the committee?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Alderman Smith, second by Alderman Yamas. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Thank you. Next item on the agenda, a resolution approving the appointment of Robert Pickens to the Aurora Planning and Zoning Commission.
Still me. So Mr. Pickens is a Ward 10 resident. He is replacing a previous Ward 10 resident on the Planning and Zoning Commission. He was recommended by Alderwoman Bade. He was interviewed by staff, and we are moving him forward. We are recommending his appointment to the Planning and Zoning Commission, and this will fill that commission up. No remaining vacancies.
Very nice.
And I see that he was, I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, just that he was in the construction business, so gives him a little bit of a heads up in this ward, so. Motion to approve.
Any questions, comments from the committee?
Second.
Motion by Alderman Smith, second by Alderman Yamas. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Next item on the agenda, 24-0146, a resolution approving the reappointment of Sean Lee, Brittany Borowitz Keller, Ivan Quinones, and the appointment of Carrie Davis and Kelly Wananaskis to the Aurora LGBTQ Advisory Board.
Yes, so before you are 3 reappointments of inaugural members of the LGBTQ Advisory Board, and then we did have 2 vacancies. So the board reviewed applications and has opted to nominate the 2 individuals before you. Carrie Davis is a freelance makeup artist. She's an Aurora resident, Ward 10, freelance makeup artist, and has been very involved in LGBTQ advocacy. And then Kelly is a non-resident. Her Aurora connection is she manages one stop through WorkNet Batavia. So she serves the Kane County area, but specifically she works out of the Santori Library, the FEC, and with APS Training Academy. So she does have some nice connections here in Aurora.
Any questions or comments from the committee?
No, motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Alderman Smith, second by Alderman Franco. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Next item on the agenda, 24-0148, a resolution authorizing the appointments of Aaron Malone, Renew Chandra Kanami, and the reappointment of Ginger Ingram and Curtis Wilson to the Civilian Review Board.
Yes, so before you, we do have 2 reappointments and then 2 new members. Renew, a Ward 10 resident, was a recommendation of Alderwoman Bade. And then Aaron Malone actually responded to one of our city postings through LinkedIn. So Renew is a Ward 10 resident. Aaron is a Ward 6 resident, and he works at Aurora University. So we're really happy to be bringing forward 2 new individuals to the CRB. And with that, we will still have 3 vacancies on this commission. So we continue to look for candidates.
Any questions, comments from the committee?
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion by Alderman Smith, second by Alderman Franco. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Thank you.
Motion carries 5-0. Thank you. Next item on the agenda, 24-0127, a resolution establishing the City of Aurora Award Scholarship template and application for all wards to use as a guideline for their scholarship programs. Okay. Is there any presentation, or are we just going to take questions, or?
Deb Lang for the Law Department. I know that I was asked a question at the last RAP committee regarding DACA and requirements for the scholarship funds. We did have that answered, and that was updated in the scholarship template. Any city funds would have to have those requirements due to the nature. There's a whole analysis, and I'm not sure if Mr. Jacobs shared my email with everyone, but that explained why that has to happen. I know there were additional questions that came up as far as businesses contributing. With this scholarship template, we would state that it's the recommendation of the law department that they should be split. Any of the city funds need to follow this template as far as their requirements. If it's business, that would have to be done separately, separate accounts, not commingled with the city funds. Additionally, any businesses that are solicited, despite that not being a city fund, all alder people, staff, employees are under the GIFT Act, the Gift Ban Act, which is in Chapter 15, specifically 15-310 and 15-311 that would require any business donations to document it. And I believe Mr. Jacobs and staff have those correct forms. So again, if there's two separate scholarship programs, this one using ward funds would follow this template and need those documents. But if it's business, again, just collect under Chapter 15 so it can be tracked. So hopefully that clears up that
I
portion.
do have a question. You just lost me when you said two separate scholarship forms. Would it,
So if someone wants to do a scholarship program with money from donations from businesses and whatnot, and does not want to have the restrictions of proof of citizenship or legal residency to extend it to other students, then that would, you can do that with non-city money. The requirements for the proof of citizenship and legal residency is required due to federal statutes, IRS, what are they called? Essentially like our IRS statutes. So those are the requirements. So anything with ward funds, city money has to follow those guidelines. So if someone wants to set up a donation-only scholarship that does not commingle with any of the city funds, that would be separate, and staff should not be working on those because it's not dealing with ward money.
so are you saying that if someone wanted to go out and get scholarship money from businesses, it just wouldn't be part of our template?
Correct, because this is dealing with city funds. The ordinance that passed 2 or 3 weeks ago now, maybe 4. So that was dealing directly with city funds.
My question on that, follow-up question on that particular situation, I understand that. So then, I guess how that money is used is not following under this template as well?
If it's not mixed with city funds, it would be, unless some other policy, but I don't, not with how, it's not using any city resources or city funds. So I would say it's not under that template.
Question.
Alderman Franco.
I have to throw a scenario out here because a lot of these times I'm not really getting exactly what we can and can't do. I go to a business as an alderman. I say I want to get money for a scholarship. I'm going to use this money for a scholarship for somebody who lives in Iowa. That's okay? According to this? Because I'm not mixing it with ward funds?
And that's, yeah, this is
Okay.
the regulation from the ordinance that was passed is over how city funds are spent or used.
Would I, as the alderman in that case, would I be mandated to tell them where this money is going? I mean, let's be real. Let's be real about all this. If I go in there asking for money for a scholarship for somebody, as an alderman in the city of Aurora, one would think that money is going to an Aurora person. So would it be my obligation to say, I'm using this money for a non-resident of Aurora? I'm not even talking about the other city, non-resident of Aurora, because that's kind of where I'm looking at with this. That would be okay?
Well, you still have to abide by Chapter 15, which is the gift ban ordinance, so everything is tracked. You should be documenting with a letter what it would be used for, and then keeping track with the forms that have been created previously. So there would be a trail of what money came in, where it's going. So there should be documentation. Otherwise, you're violating the gift ban act if it's.
All right, so, but it doesn't have a name. It won't have a name on it to the business. So where it's going is a scholarship, but it's going to a scholarship that somebody's address is out of Aurora. I mean, I'm just trying to figure that out, because it almost would seem to me as though, when we start doing that, then we're really, not really doing Aurora business, we're doing worldwide business, and I don't know I don't know if the businesses would be on board with that. I mean, they could be, but, and I guess they would be if we told them, but if there's, I'm just trying to figure out how that would work in reality. I don't know that that's quite what the intention of this is, but I'm just throwing it out there. I don't know how my colleagues feel about
So
that.
I make one point, so basically, and I kind of agree, is like it's almost, I don't want to say deceitful is the right word, but if you're coming in there and wearing an Alderman shirt, then you're going to be using these for, within Aurora or something like that, if there's no reason for us to disclose that there's basically two separate funds, is what you're saying, basically, so.
Well-
With, give me just one second, Alderman Garza.
I have a question before that, too.
And then, so my question is then is, let's say that I'm having a award ceremony, and I have 10,000 in ward funds and I have 10,000 in non-ward funds. How is that handled? I mean, is it like the staff, I'm assuming what you're saying is they can't help produce the documents, facilitate any of that kind of stuff, or is it, I know they can't help facilitate the non-city funds scholarships, but as far as the entire event and things like that, I mean, is that splitting hairs, or is that,
I would have to evaluate it, but I would say if it's put on for the purpose of scholarships and including ward funds, that should be fine, but there should be a separation from,
of some sort? Okay.
yeah.
And then Vice Chair Franco, or I'm sorry, Vice Chair Yamas, and
And
then,
I have another question as well.
So, I mean, kind of tied in with the chairman's question right now, I'm just concerned about kind of the door this is going to open, where, like he mentioned, if I show up, like for my back-to-school fair, we have a combination of private donations and ward funds. Private donations cover the majority of the event. In that case, all the funds that are coming into this event, where businesses are thinking it's for the first ward back-to-school program, this entire time, those were private funds. We could have done whatever we wanted with those funds and not have to abide by the rules that we have set up for the ward funds.
You will still have the gift ban act where you should be putting in the letter what it's used for and giving those letters and recording it. So under chapter 15, it should still all and turned in, so we know who's receiving donations and where it's going.
And in the event that I don't, or someone else doesn't solicit the donation, but the donation just freely comes in, would we still have to then report what is done with that?
Yeah, I think if you're not following the paper trail or someone calls the ethics advisor, there may be some issues if you're not following the ordinances we have.
But what about the fact that this is a city event, or it's a city scholarship program? Doesn't that now kind of commingle the two? Because if, let's just say I'm going to have some event that would not be covered or be allowed under the city, and let's just say, for example, I'm going to throw a wrestling promotion at Garfield Park. So it's in the first ward. I'm wearing my alderman shirt. I'm promoting it as the first ward extreme wrestling at Garfield Park. And local businesses that are wrestling fans are donating to this event, and they're thinking it's organized by the city. It must be, because it's the alderman putting on the event, and I'm wearing my shirt the entire time. The city may have not allowed that type of event, but because those are private donations, and I put that they're clearly for a wrestling event, they can go ahead and give me those funds. And
I do think.
You kind of see where I'm going?
Yeah, but this may be apples and oranges, because this is dealing directly with.
I disagree with that, Deb. That's apples to apples.
because once you give the money, it's saying, here's a blank check, do what you will with it, if we no longer have to abide by the
think-
ward funds.
I think you missed the first thing that she said. if the funds get commingled, then you can't do it.
No,
The funds have to be
I
separate.
never said that they were commingled.
Well, you kept saying that the funds come in. I think if.
I mean, the
if
funds,
Alderman-
donations come in if there's a separate account set up for just the private donation. That's what I mean, come in there, not come into the city.
I think we need to go back to the original question, is this scholarship, narrowing it down just to the scholarship form, the question that was asked was, can DACA students get city money scholarships? So that's where all this analysis was focused on, solely on scholarships. And that if businesses want to do this and have their scholarship program, that private money would not have the same restrictions that city money has. So that was
But
where
part of the same
analysis
scholarship
is.
program, we're saying there'd be a separate scholarship program for those private donations.
If private businesses want to do one and involve a ward alderperson, then that is, would be separate, and they can give it to a non-citizen without the required documents. So that was what the analysis was for solely on this. I think it is kind of expanded from there. The only other thing with the scholarship funds is Chapter 15 rules, and that we have to document every time we're getting donations in. So this may have, I think the question may have gone further than what the analysis.
Oh, I understand, yeah, I understand the
solely on.
original question and the intent in addressing that, but my concern is that this opens up now just a door to all these other possibilities that are gonna introduce so many other variables and problems that we will now have to address that are so much greater than the original question. That's my concern.
I think for clarification, and maybe the word commingle is, if any money comes into the city and is then thus handled by the finance department eventually, comes out to our administrator calls up finance, we either walk it over or it gets taken over and it gets to finance. Those funds would fall under this. I think Alderman Garza is going to speak to the way the businesses handle it, and the money, quote unquote, never comes in. So,
No, they're going direct to the universities.
yeah. So it's not just commingling of funds, and I understand what you said. Any funds that come in to the city would fall under this, commingled or not. The finance isn't setting up a Ward 11 scholarship account and a private business scholarship account private businesses are putting into. No, that's not happening. It's a Ward 11 account, period.
I understand that. The concern isn't so much, I mean, I understand there are two separate accounts. I'm just thinking, how could someone take advantage of this? Where are the loopholes
No, there aren't
here?
two separate accounts.
In my mind, there's a City of Aurora account, and then there's the money that, let's say, each business has that they then give to the universities directly. To me, that's a separate account,
separate
just
rules.
separate funds there. So separate sets of rules, two different arenas with different rules.
Okay.
What I am concerned about is if I am throwing an event and I'm saying, this is the Ward 1 scholarship program, here are the parameters, only Ward 1 residents can apply, et cetera, and that's for the ward funds because we have those rules in place. But if at the same event I'm handing out scholarships from private funds that don't have the same rules and parameters, now I might tell someone, hey, Carl, you don't live in Aurora, so you don't qualify for my ward program, but you do live in Montgomery, and this other event here, or this other source of funds doesn't have that same restriction. So, and with this one, I can just say, I'm gonna give you the money, because there's really aren't any rules in place, because those are private funds, not the ward funds where we need to have this committee with the requirements that are set in place in this template. So now I can tell Carl, yeah, you really don't qualify, but I'm guaranteeing you, I'm gonna give you a $2,000 scholarship because you got me 5 votes last year. And I'm gonna get that from private funds, even though it's my event with my letterhead, my City of Aurora logo, I'm giving you funds pretty much under the table from private sources. That's the concern here.
And to piggyback on that, and there's no, I don't want to say no, not regulation, but just like what he said, is you can say, there's no
sets of
process
rules.
they have to follow, they don't
Two
have
sets of rules.
to do the, 2 sets of rules, basically, so they
One
don't have
has
to
no
follow any
rules and one does.
evaluation, they can just like you said, just, you know, here you go, no problem, you know, okay, Carl, you want to get a scholarship, here's the award fund process that you have to go through. So basically, like you said, it sets a different rules, so.
So I just want to make a comment too, because those are all great points, and I agree with them all. So if I can go into a business in my ward, in any place in the city, and said, I'd like money for a scholarship. There's this kid in California I know. All right, that's fine, here's the money. The whole thing is just wrong to me. If I'm an alderman in the city of Aurora and I'm going in as the alderman, now if I'm going as Carl Franco and I'm not wearing my alderman hat, I don't have the job anymore, hey, I got some kids that need some money, you want to give them some kids, they live all over Illinois. That's one thing, but if I go in as the alderman, I really have a problem with the presentation I'm doing, that it's not for, you could talk about DACA and all you want, but I'm just talking about geographic boundaries. I'm just thinking, I'm an alderman for the city of Aurora. I mean, it probably should stay in those boundaries, because God only knows, we have enough kids on Aurora that could use that money. So that's kind of a strange thing to me. Carl Franco, not alderman, yes, Carl Franco, the alderman, I probably should have stricter guidelines of this money going into, because there's gonna be an assumption, unless you put a letter, this money goes throughout the country, it's going to somebody in Aurora. I just think that's kind of how that should go, in addition to stuff that you guys are talking about.
So, yes, Alderman, go ahead.
The businesses, when they provide money, you understand, they not send the checks to the city, they not send the checks to me, they not send the checks to the student.
Right.
They send the check to the university. We provide all the information after we review with the committee.
So I
Then
get,
the check they made to the university, Aurora University or Avance Community College, San Jose. The reason is over around Aurora, not only Aurora residents. It's because the businesses, they get customers everywhere.
right.
How you want to control the customers in La Quebrada, when La Quebrada provides scholarship? They have customers from everywhere. They have customers from North Aurora, from Oswego, from Plano.
Oh,
So how you want to provide a scholarship to say only Aurora residents?
Well,
The
because you-
businesses want to
well, because
serve
Wani-
their
be-
own
wait.
customers.
Right, right. Well, I would say this then. I would say, let the alderman or mayor in Montgomery do it. Let the alderman or mayor in Plano do it. Let the alderman in Springfield do it. Because I think we all have our regional areas. So, you know, I just think that when I am a leader in the city of Aurora, elected official for the city of Aurora, I kind of would keep my parameters to that. Let the other towns do that kind of stuff, because.
I understand when it's work funds.
Right.
Franco, when
Right.
it's work funds, I perfectly understand. The work funds for me is only for residents of second ward, and it's only for 2 residents.
Right.
And it's $5,000, up to 5,000. Even in 2021, no one applied. The 5,000 stayed there. So my following question is, they can roll over to the following year? Because if it's no applicants in that year? So the 5,000 provide for this year and no one applied for second ward, so it's roll over to the following year? But that's what concern is the work funds. Work funds, I understand to help
Well,
control,
right, right.
but why you want to control the businesses? Some of the businesses, they want to provide, because the customers, they have everywhere.
So, I
And
think.
not only the
right.
businesses, we have organizations too, like Unidos. They provide one scholarship.
And Juan, and they can all do their own scholarship programs, and no one here is accusing you of your specific program of taking advantage of the things that we're talking about now. We're looking at hypotheticals, and this, as in, it could be taken advantage of this way, and that's what we want to address now, so that doesn't happen in the future. No one's saying this specifically about your ward program.
Yeah, but
We understand that you have a combination of the two.
They never send the money to the city. Never.
And that's what I just had that long discussion about earlier, was we understand that. We're not talking about them sending stuff to the city. We know that those are separate funds, so we're trying to still address how those funds are going to be handled when the two separate private and public funds are part of the same event or same program. Because even though you're saying, hey, the money comes from La Quebrada or wherever it may be, if it's still Juan y Garza's event, or I'll use me as an example, so you're not the bad person here, I'm the bad guy, it's Alderman Llamas's
They're
event.
free to do whatever they want of the organization.
And
How another man-
let me finish, Juan, let me finish and I will explain that. Let me finish and I will explain that, please. So, if, let's say I have a scholarship program, the Alderman Llamas Scholarship Program, and I do what we've been talking about here. I solicit, let's just say Banana Split gives me $5,000 to give to whoever, and whatever students are in need, and then I have $5,000 of award funds to work with. So all of the parameters in here govern the $5,000 in award funds. The $5,000 that I receive from a business doesn't have to abide by these rules, but because it's one program, one event, and people know it as the Alderman Yamas, well, hold on, people know it as the Alderman Yamas Scholarship Program. Like I mentioned earlier, if someone doesn't qualify for the award funds because they live out in Montgomery, I shouldn't be able to tell them, hey, don't worry, you're still going to get a scholarship. It's just going to come from a business, not from the award funds. Because now I'm still using my position as an alderman to essentially solicit donations from private businesses to then give out privately and not publicly, when even though we have two separate accounts, two separate funds, however we want to look at that, us as a person, our identity is already commingled. I'm a private individual resident, but I'm also an elected official. And to separate those two is sometimes difficult, and in this case, going to be nearly impossible if you're giving both types of scholarships.
They never send the check to the city, and they never check.
Juana, you're not understanding. We are way past that. We're past the money going to the city. I don't think you're listening. Do you want to go ahead?
Can I
They
get
went ahead
going?
to separate accounts. We never have an account for businesses. The businesses make the check to the universities. How many times I have to explain that? How many
Bonnie,
times?
I'm trying to be very nice here. I'm trying
No,
to
but
be
you
calm and
say
relaxed.
account. The businesses, they
No,
don't have account.
what I'm saying, we all know that. The money doesn't come here. We're not talking about that. That's not the issue. We're not talking about that.
What is the issue? Your issue is because you think they provide us a scholarship and we want to vote from these businesses? Some of these businesses not even
No,
Aurora.
that's not what we're talking about. No.
My question is too, then if you're giving to you're soliciting from a business to get scholarship money, how does everybody in Plainfield know that you're doing the scholarship? So to me, that says that you have somebody specifically. looking at
No, we
Plainfield.
provide the information in the newspaper. Come on. Come on.
Juani,
We do it for 18
please wait
years.
until you're called on. We need
do
to
it
have,
for
we need to have some
18
structure in this meeting.
Now it's getting out of hand here. Yeah, so it goes in a newspaper, and that's how they know, like the City of Plainfield newspaper, it doesn't go to the high
Not the
schools.
city. We put it the information, the
Yeah.
applications, and all the schools.
Yeah,
All the
schools
schools, they have the information.
And then,
Wabansi have it, yes.
All right, so
Aurora University.
this is really.
Walcani Urban
All right,
Lake, because
it's my
sometimes they
turn.
have-
Juani, please, please.
You have to,
Okay,
you know the rules here, you have to stay in order. What you do with scholarships is a great thing, and your breakfast is a wonderful thing. Where I'm bothered by this whole process is that you're going to Aurora businesses and you're asking for scholarship money. Are you saying to those businesses, and if you're not, perhaps this is what we need to take care of, this scholarship money quite possibly will not be for an Aurora resident? Let me
They know.
finish. Let me finish. And I would want to know more that it's in writing. And we have so many kids. We are the second largest city in the state of Illinois. It blows my mind that an alderman would utilize their position to get money from the businesses and not keep the money in the city in which you've taken your oath to represent. You did not take an oath to represent Plainfield or Montgomery or North Aurora. I just, for me, I love it. I don't do scholarships. It's misrepresentation of your position because you are using your position. When you walk into those businesses, you're using your position as Juani Garza, Ward 2 Alderwoman. You're not walking in there as Juani Garza, Aurora resident. You're using your city logo, city position, city everything to get money, and then you're taking the money outside of our city. And that, I don't even know how that's ethical. I don't
Well,
have
that's
any
the
answers
businesses.
here, but it doesn't matter that they're
Oh,
businesses.
yes, they matter, they matter.
It doesn't, but there's
They
some
matter.
ethics here,
Yes.
Juani,
Well-
there's some ethics.
okay.
Aurora
Thank you.
University have
Hold on, hold
students
on,
from
hold on.
everywhere.
Hold on. Alderman Franklin.
So, I'm listening to all this, and obviously, the intent here is to do something good, apparently for the greater than Aurora good, which is fine. Wouldn't it be better to use that energy? Because I would think we'd all agree that we should not know who these kids are, because it should be, in the blind. I don't want to know who they are, where they're from, and the whole thing. If you're needy and you hit these all qualifications, that's great. To take that energy and take that money from the businesses and direct it to the Dunham Foundation and let them distribute the business money to the greater Aurora area. Wouldn't that, and then you have your ward money for that. You've done a good job by taking the business money, thrown into the Dunham Foundation, who could basically look at a bigger picture.
You
like
want me to
Montgomery's
answer
and
the
stuff like
question?
that. Wouldn't that be a better vehicle to use for what you're trying to accomplish?
I don't want to dictate it. I don't want to be dictated and dictated to the businesses to do that. If the business want direct the money to Wabansi Community College
Right.
or Aurora University, I don't want to dictate and say, oh, no, you have to send them to this organization or to this foundation. What happened with the community foundation, with all the money with Fiestas Patrias? You have already results? You know how many students have already the scholarship for that? For the Fiestas Patrias event? We don't have nothing. We don't have no results. We don't have nowhere as how many students apply and how many students have the money for the Fiestas Patrias event. Because they provide the money all to community foundation. We know the results? No, until today.
So, Juan, if I can just jump in real quick with something you said for the in your specific ward program, the way it is now, for students that are getting money that come from private businesses and not from either your ward funds, my ward funds, anyone else's, do you have the same committee that selects the award winners for all those students, or I mean, who decides which ones then?
We have a committee. We have a committee.
One
for a long
committee
time.
for the ones who receive either one. So then isn't that committee dictating to the businesses what's happening with that money, where the money is
No, we don't want to dictate to the
going?
businesses how they want to provide the scholarship. We did this for 18 years. I don't want to say, oh, now you don't send the money to the university. Now you have to send to this foundation, like he recommends.
It would just be a different person that they would mail the check to. Is that what we're saying? It's going to be a undue burden on them? To say, instead of sending a check to AU,
No,
send it
I don't see
to
a
this
problem with
foundation?
that. The problem is, I don't want to be a dictator, is what I'm saying. I don't want to, if they want
Well,
to
if you
provide
want
a
to be, that's
scholarship
up
for
to you
the
if you're going to be a
student.
dictator. I mean,
If-
no one here is going to make you a
Because you
dictator.
guys acting like the dictators, you want to dictate to the businesses how to provide the scholarships?
Because we
That's
wanna keep
God.
the money in
That's
Aurora.
God, they provide.
Because
Not-
we
not all
want to keep the
businesses.
money in Aurora
This isn't a
does
shouting
not
match.
make us a dictator. It
Okay,
makes
okay,
us,
okay.
it makes us taking care of the city in which we.
Both of you guys,
taken
can you
our-
please, everyone
our oath
wait
to
in.
represent.
All right, please, I don't have a gavel to do it, jeez.
Well, you're not
Guys,
the chair.
well, someone needs to do it because this is getting out of hand. Everyone wait until they speak. Everyone just
Chairman.
wait until you're called on, including you
Not a
too.
shouting match. Not a shouting match. I'm about ready to lose. Let's all be professional. Let's all talk to each other. Wait till I call on you guys to talk, okay? I'm getting tired of this turning into a shouting match. Agreed? Everybody agree? Okay, who wants to talk?
I just want to go back to why we're doing the scholarship programs, and I just.
Why? Because the.
Well,
Okay,
no,
what I just said.
well, that's a rhetorical question. So we're doing it for the betterment of the students. And I think at the end of the day, we want to present ourselves above board. So when, and again, we'll go back to, as an alderman or alderman for City of Aurora, when we go to business, I think people would believe that's going to Aurora kids. So if it's not, okay, because we don't have to apparently with businesses, although I think we should, are we letting them know that this could go countywide? And the businesses go, but with the same procedures that you redact to certain things? Because if that's the case, I don't see why we can't funnel it to an organization that handles it globally. Thank you, Alderman Franco, for bringing $10,000 to the Dunham Foundation for scholarships. Kids are going to be grateful in Montgomery and Plainfield. It seems like they got it already set up for that, and then you have your in Aurora one or your in your ward for that. I don't know why, because we accomplish this. I would think we accomplish the same thing. The kids are going to get the same amount of money. It's just that but the Dunham can expand their horizons. That's why I'm just wondering why we just wouldn't use that vehicle, because it cleans all this up. Then you don't have to worry about that. I guess that's my question.
It's your opinion. It's your opinion.
I have a
And what if, here there's rules, so it's not gonna go to a family or relative. It's not gonna go to somebody that's on the board. It's not gonna go, there's rules and policies in here that's not gonna happen. If it goes from the corporation to whoever, I know if I donated money or anybody else donated money here and they already knew it was gonna go to, committee member A's nephew or something like that, I would be upset about that. So the perception that it's Alderman Warman that's soliciting the donation, I think the perception is it's gonna be above board how it's done. So unless you tell me that, hey, this is gonna be for somebody in another town or another region, that to me is misleading.
Well, if I
May I?
can get back on that real quick,
Yes.
real quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
You're a business owner.
Yes.
I come to you as Alderman Franco, I said, I'd like to give money for a scholarship, blah, blah, blah. What do you think, where do you think that money's gonna go geographically?
At a minimum here in Aurora, if not Fifth Ward.
So, I mean, that's, that's kind of what I wanted to go to him, because that would, I believe, would be what everybody expects, unless we detail it to say, here's the thing, we're gonna give it to kids outside, or they may be eligible, the whole thing. And then, if I'm a business in Aurora, I may or may not want to give, but the point is, at least I know. And so at a minimum, I think that's gotta go through the grapevine. It just has to. You
I
gotta
would
know where
agree
you're
with
getting
that,
your money.
Alderman Bug?
Alderman Frankie, I mean, you make some great points, but kind of going way back 6 weeks ago, unfortunately, when we bring in the outside organizations, then we're under their rules. And unfortunately, you would think that in the perfect world it works out that way. I learned when I started this program it didn't. That's why I brought us 2 months ago that map of where the Dunham Fund, their boundary map. You think would be all of Aurora. It's 95% not in Ward 9.
Exactly.
Half of Ward 8 is not under the Dunham Fund boundary. So in theory, you hope and you think it is, and then you find out other groups. And I mean, there's so many different parameters, and everyone, or not everyone, but different people are thinking about doing these types of programs. So you come up against East Aurora High School has students not from Aurora, some from Montgomery.
Yep.
Where I know some organizations say you have to attend an Aurora High School. That's another thing I came up against because I have Oswego East. And some people up north have Batavia High School. So, you know, I think those are things that we have to kind of answer here. If you live in Montgomery but go to East Aurora High every day, do you qualify? You know, those are things we just need to consider. You know,
Yes.
I don't say if it's right or wrong.
Yes.
It's,
May I?
Alderman Smith, yeah.
All right, I have a legal question. So, I have a daughter with Down syndrome. I've decided I am going to go on a campaign to provide funds for adults with Down syndrome that may need money for one reason or another. So I start going through the city of Aurora, and I decide I'm going to give $1,000 of my ward funds to this event, this donation, whatever it is you want to call it. And I start going to the city of Aurora as an alderwoman, using my name as an alderwoman, and saying, I'm here because I am collecting money for people with Down syndrome so that they can, I don't know, pay their rent, whatever it might be. And then those people give the money. The difference is they're going to have to give the money to the person because it's not an institution, but just strike that difference. Those people, those businesses provide those individuals, could be anywhere in the United States, with a check. But I've used all of my city credentials to get that money.
All right, so you're soliciting it?
I'm just like you're soliciting a scholarship. You're soliciting a scholarship. I'm doing it on the same premise that I'm soliciting a scholarship. I'm soliciting scholarship money then. Go with scholarship money. I'm soliciting scholarship money. But I can, now that and since I've used all of my city credentials to get that money, and I can have the checks made out to any of these people, doesn't even, because if you can go to Montgomery, you can go to the next state over, then am I okay doing that? Because I want to know what my ethical guidelines as an alderman, because I'm so confused to the ethics of this. That's my confusion, is that, and I say it over and over again, and I'm sorry to get upset, but when I took an oath of office, the oath of office I took was to the residents of the city of Aurora. Yes, we have plenty of people and businesses that use each other outside of our perimeters, and the Dunham Fund was simply just an example in which Alderman Franco used. It could be any fund. I think what Alderman Garza does is wonderful. The only problem I have with your scholarship, Wani, is that it goes outside of the city of Aurora. That is all I'm going to say about this, and I want to know how we address this ethically.
Well,
I'm not asking you,
no.
I'm asking legal.
No, I ask permit.
Hold on one second, Todd.
So going to the scholarship question, again, if you're soliciting in your position as the elected official, the alderperson, you're still under the city ordinance in Chapter 15 that you have to document any of those donations, keep track. There has to be a paper trail to that. I think what is being asked, what we have here today is just the scholarship program template. But what I am hearing from everybody is actually quite larger than what the scholarship program is. And the RAP committee does have, basically, you're discussing governmental ethics. That would probably need to be a separate legislature item for discussion, a larger umbrella than just this separate scholarship template.
Okay, I'm going to do a follow-up question. Have all the scholarships followed that have come in from outside businesses thus far that, using, what is it, 15? Was it code 15?
Chapter 15.
Chapter 15. And where would they be and how would we know that that's been occurring?
I believe Mr. Jacobs has the forms. That was, if I may have 1 second.
Have they been happening within our office? I'm extremely ethical.
It was passed in 2019, July 23rd of 2019.
Rich Jacobs, Chief of Staff. For those that inform us when they are doing a donation on behalf of an event, then we keep track in an Excel spreadsheet. If there's a letter that is supposed to go to the donor expressly stating what the donation would be used for, there's also a receipt that is given to the donor, and we keep, it's a booklet of receipts, and so we keep that all tracked. It's not an expansive list. We're reliant on the alder people to inform us, but there has been a process since this was approved many months ago.
Yeah, 2022, originally there was 2019 legislation, and then I think the form came out in 2022.
And then to end my comment, what I'm learning from the outcome of today is that I can go to businesses, use all my city credentials, and not necessarily keep the money in the city of Aurora. That's what I'm coming out of today with.
Well, I would have one question on that too. Could you take that money and already have identified a person and give it to that person? Would that be okay? I guess I'm looking at you, but I guess it would be for you. Could I do that? Could I say, I know a person that lives in Batavia, and I got this from the business, and I told him it could go outside the business, could go outside of Aurora. Could I give that money to that person?
The current ordinances that we have cover city funds.
This is, yeah.
But we're not
And-
using city funds.
Yeah, that's what she's saying, no, it's hard. This
Yeah.
is specifically for city ward funds, everything else is not pertaining to this, so.
Right.
No.
I'm
Correct.
gonna suggest if there's
So
a
then
way
yes.
that we could hold this and then do it, in some way do an inclusive thing, or do you recommend? Because I think it's clear that everybody's not, I don't wanna say happy, but uncomfortable with, most everybody, uncomfortable with how this is kind of commingled, I guess.
Well, I want that, can I get that question answered? Because here's the thing, and we all know this, there's businesses that I am really close with. They would do anything for me. So if I said, I got a kid that I know in Batavia, and I'm gonna go to this business, of course, Alderman Franco, what do you want? I want $2,000 to give it a scholarship, and I gave it to that kid. Doesn't have to go through the process, because it's a business money.
But you're using your city.
Well, I'm going through the city, but I got carte blanche on that. I don't have to go through this. I've already targeted somebody because it's not ward fund, that's city funds, not ward funds. Could I do that?
I think with how the ordinances are at this point, and it's no city funds, yes, but you still need to document under Chapter 15 what donations you solicited, what they're going towards, and keep track.
Okay, so with that being said, I would ask my colleagues, does that sound right?
No.
No, it doesn't, because we all know that there's businesses, I'll write you a check for $2,000, what, you know, all right, throw it through the system, but this person that I targeted doesn't have to go through everything else that my ward kids, who I'm using ward funds, have to go through. So it's not an equal playing field, it's not equitable. So that's kind of what I was getting at. If everything is equitable and we do the process for all of that right, it is what it is, it's fair, we redacted it, they qualify. But that's a loophole that even though I show it in there, I can still target a kid that I know that doesn't have to compete with the other kids in the process. And when you don't have to compete, when it's on a level playing field, that to me is as wrong as it gets. So I'm just throwing that out there. That's why I just think that part needs to be addressed more than anything. It doesn't seem fair.
Well, that's what we've been talking about.
Right, but I just want to get, sometimes you got to break it down to get to that point where this is exactly what could happen legally. Alderman Bud?
Yeah, I understand you want to hold it, and probably should, a lot of questions there. I wanted to see if we could do some cleanup of what we have here, though, so some things that don't have to do with the issues we've talked about already. So in the template, scholarship template, I guess the first two sections, what students need to submit to apply, and eligibility requirement of the students. So sometimes when you have the word template, it kind of means guidelines. So that's what in these two sections, I was just trying to ascertain. Are we talking about these are going to be mandates for all scholarships? The things in these two things are mandated, or are they guidelines?
Can I answer part of that?
Yes,
And the reason I'm going to say is because if I look at it individually, some are say must, some say shall, some say should. So I think each individual
Yeah.
line, it basically tells you if it's a mandate or it's not. Shall and must, obviously. Suggested, yes.
Okay,
So I mean, I know what you're saying, and so I think it's in there per one.
okay.
The very last page ostracizes what is mandatory.
Right. Which I think is actually a pretty good thing.
Yes.
It gives you a little discretion in some of these, I mean, there's a number of line items. It gives you discretion in some of the line items, but not all of them, which is basically really makes it a guideline overall, because you don't have to exactly adhere to every, 30 points. Maybe 20 of them, and then 10 are like, this is kind of what you should do. And that's okay, because at the end of the day, it works out to be a pretty good deck. That's the way I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so in the first section, we just left, this is just a typo, but, because in the front page, it talks about high school and college transcripts. Then in here in the actual document, it only says 2 or 4-year college or university transcripts. It doesn't say anything about high school transcripts. So that's just a typo. We need to add that back in. The last two things under number 1 are just technically not a part of what needs to be submitted to apply. Those two things have to deal with scholarship recipients after the fact. So once someone is awarded a scholarship, we need them to complete a W-9, and then we need the college or university to complete the W-9 form. But we have it under, these are things you need to submit to apply to the scholarship. So we just need to maybe move those out just for, we can move them somewhere else. I mean, of course, our staff does a great job. They know what they need in the end once you award a scholarship. But those two things are not, for the kid over at whatever high school, they don't need to
May I make a
submit.
recommendation so we don't have to have another section, just to put a parentheses after those two things, after scholarship is awarded, or something like that could clean that up?
Yeah,
It's part of the submission of it, but it could be submitted after the scholarship
Like
is
if
awarded.
awarded,
Yeah,
something like
yeah.
that, yeah.
upon completion of the award or something, upon completion of the award.
Yeah,
Something like that, so you don't have to do a whole new section in parentheses.
Great suggestions.
And then there was one, where is it? Somewhere in here it talks about, oh, there it is. The third to last one. And I don't know if, I was trying to go through scenarios, but it says a photo of the person. I personally never required that. I mean, certainly some people send in their copy of their driver's license when they're saying, okay, this is where I live. I live on such street in Ward 9 or live in the street in Aurora. I don't know what the thinking was that we require a photo. Is that,
Which one is the other one?
For section third.
yeah, the third from the bottom, photo of self and brief biography. Because I was trying to say, could someone commit some fraud where but if you're applying with official transcripts from a high school,
High school
I
students.
get, of course, you don't want to hand the check to the wrong person.
High school
But
students.
anyway, in the end, it gets mailed anyway. But I didn't understand the photo.
All high school students have photo IDs.
Yeah, I'm saying yet now we're requiring them to submit to us, the city of Aurora, and our staff, a photo of them. Did you have thoughts on that?
Yeah, Rich Jacobs again, Chief of Staff. So this document was a compiling of both requirements from Alderwoman Garza's scholarship as well as yours. And in one of the documents, it did ask, and I think it was meant to possibly be used in a program at an event.
Their photo.
Right.
Oh, okay.
We can strike that.
Strike it, or it's not an item that's required, according to
Say
the.
like may provide a photo. I mean, I don't know, does that possibly open us up to claims of bias and because we're looking
I
at
don't know
photos of people?
if a person would be opposed to sending in their photo for some reason. I mean, you're not, I don't need your photo to give you a scholarship.
And then obviously, then that doesn't need to be there. All I'm saying is, we didn't make this out of thin air. We just compiled of the only 2 scholarship programs currently in the out of the alderman's
Yeah, I
office.
suggest we strike it then, so. if
And I
it's,
believe the photo would be redacted in the process anyways, because you can't know who it is.
If you're gonna redact it, then why need it then, I guess, so.
Right, and if somebody's gonna do a program after the fact, can I have an idea, we're gonna do a big special event, you can send your program, your
Something
photo
handled
in,
separately, yeah.
after the whole thing is done, just for that purpose.
So are we going to keep biography in there?
I would say that, yes, sir. I mean, that's part of the evaluation process, I guess, what I say, yeah.
Who knows?
Do we agreed on striking it?
Agree on strike, I think so, agree on
Just
striking.
photo of self,
I would
correct?
concur.
The photo, so.
Yeah.
I think, yeah.
On a
Yep.
motion?
Also, technical question. The recommendation of the ward scholarship template is to require the following items, and then it has on that first bullet, the official transcripts from high school accredited to for your college, but then it said underneath it's recommended. So that word required and recommended but not mandatory. It's a little bit confusing.
Where's that at?
In the actual Legistar legislation text, the first bullet, official transcripts from high school and/or accredited to or for your college.
Is that actually on the application? I
It's-
don't think it is.
It's in the Legistar
I
piece.
see it, but I don't know that it's actually it's part of the discussion. I don't know that it's actually on the application.
Well, maybe it would just be good to nail down if it's required to have a high school transcript or not. And then the other thing that came up is the fourth to last bullet on page 2. It says the ward scholarships will come from businesses and up to 5,000 in ward funds. that's a mandatory item. It doesn't allow for individual contributions. It might be good to expand that to individual contributions.
I don't think we're ready to do that right now.
Just include individuals in. And I guess the only other thought I have is you look at, or there's one question for legal that I had. The last bullet on page 1, which I think is what you guys were discussing earlier, all Ward Scholarship donations shall be made out to City of Aurora, but then you said they're not commingled. So I guess I'm just confused if there's one fund or two based on this,
Based
which
on
I
this,
think that may have confused a couple other people.
Based on this, there's one
Just
fund.
one, yeah.
I think this was specific to the ward scholarships with city money. So if that's where, if there are private donations and it's going with the ward scholarship program, it has to follow anytime it's commingled with the city money would have to follow the requirements by the federal government and IRS as far as having certain requirements of the students applying for it, certain documentation.
Okay. And then I guess the only other question I have is more for just general thought for the committee that I do understand the slippery slope, Alderman Yamas. I don't know what happens if you get a private donation for your fund that's largely funded by the city, but also I've donated to East Aurora High School, which isn't limited to Aurora's boundaries, and I've donated to the Aurora Sunrise Rotary, which is connected to the international fund, so those funds definitely could easily escape. The Fox Valley Music Consortium, we all donate. So the question is, I mean, are we locked in to, while I agree, it makes sense. It makes sense to mandate Aurora, but then as we continue, some of these organizations do reach outside of our boundaries.
But those things you just
Thank
said
you,
were
Mr.
all
Chairman.
made out to the city of Aurora, residents and/or. The school was in Aurora, Fox Valley in Aurora, and I forget what the third one is you said.
Well, if I may make a.
Rotary,
Of
Aurora
Aurora.
Sunrise Rotary.
Aurora.
Just for the record, real quick, John, my concern wasn't so much with funds going outside of Aurora, as it was just someone taking the ethical back road and soliciting funds for other purposes and not having any restrictions or guidelines in place for those funds. That's what it was.
So I'm not sure if perhaps the next RAP committee, we can discuss, come to RAP and have an item discussing section 15-315, which is under that ethics ordinance, solicitation of donations. The section 315 is solicitation of public donations, and then the following section, 316, is solicitation of private donations. Perhaps we can go over that, and if there are additions that the RAP committee would like to see or a change in restructure, that may address the other issues that have come up with the scholarship template, these other questions.
I would agree with that. Alderman Craig?
I would agree with that because we're almost on the borderline of it not being a scholarship program. You get business money, you don't have to be accountable to how it goes to somebody else. So I think that is almost a different discussion, I really do.
Yeah.
Because I think what we have here, when we talk about what we're looking at, this is pretty good. You removed a couple of things you mentioned.
Right.
But I think that other issue is a different issue, and we have to look at that via that lens of what you just talked about. I just think that might be the way to go, and clean that up a little bit. Because we don't want to discourage it, but we want to make sure that it's appropriate and ethically fine to utilize going forward. I think that's kind of where we need to be with that.
I would agree with that, so.
I do have, following you, don't want to discourage it. This is just such a tough place to be in because, you know, wards that do scholarships, they do great things. And it's unfortunate that there's, you know, negativity has come into this process. But, you know, just because we did things 18, 20 years ago where there was no office rules or regulations in place doesn't mean that that's how we should continue to do things going forward. So as the city has continued to clean up the ordinances and our rules and regulations, we need to continue to do the same. So I think that we need to move forward with what we did, because I think this is a good document that the Alderman's office put together. I just think the other part of it needs a lot more time, effort, and legal opinion.
So with that being said, so should we hold this, or, I mean, that's what I feel like we should do, is hold this.
Well,
I'll just say that I think that would be a good idea to hold it while we have the discussions on those other sections. We can, I
Everything
mean, it
after,
really,
yeah.
this is such a big thing. We want to have kind of the big picture here and see how these things are interconnected. And because maybe some of these concerns that we raised today are already
addressed,
covered
yes.
or will be covered if we were to make minor modifications on some other part of the code.
I would agree with that.
Motion to hold this item.
Second?
Motion by Alderman Smith, second by Alderman Yamas. Madam Clerk, could you call the roll on this?
Chairperson Ron Mormon,
Yes.
Vice Chair Emmanuel Yamas.
Yes.
Alderman Edward Bell,
Yes.
Alderman Carl Franco,
yes.
Alderwoman Patty Smith,
Yes.
5 yeses.
Motion adjourned?
Second.
No need for a closed session. Motion by Alderman Yamas, second by Alderman Smith to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries 5-0. This meeting is adjourned at 4:12 PM.